I just wanted a romantic dinner with my husband. But what I ended up hearing was how he used my life saving work as a doctor to justify his affair with a young, pretty assistant. So I chose divorce. But later on, we'd love to know where in the world you're listening from, so don't hesitate to drop a comment below. And if this is your first time here, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our stories about resistance, consequences, and powerful rebirths. Your support is what keeps us going, bringing you more real-life stories that you won't be able to look away from. Let's begin. Not in the mood today. James Sullivan, my husband, brushed my hand away, his voice dry like sandpaper. He turned over, his broad back facing me, as if an invisible wall had been erected across the cold, king-size bed. Today was supposed to be the day we planned to try for a baby, but now his rejection felt like a knife, cold, sudden, and cutting deep. Maybe realizing how cold he'd been, James sighed, turned back, and pulled me into his arms. His hand, once a place of safety, now felt perfunctory. He kissed my forehead lightly, his lips touching my skin more out of duty than care. "Be good. Go to sleep," he whispered, his voice low but hollow. I lay there, eyes wide open in the dark, counting the steady rhythm of his breathing. Each breath was like a hammer, breaking apart the quiet fear inside me that something between us was no longer right. The next morning, I decided to do something. I left work early. In my mind, I pictured a romantic evening, soft candlelight, his favorite red wine, and me, wearing the dress he once said made me look like an unstoppable flame. I wanted to surprise him, but as I reached the front door, I heard him talking with his best friend, Ethan Brooks. "I used to really love Alyssa," James said, his voice flat like he was reading a finance report. "But now, just thinking about those hands that have touched so much blood, I just feel nothing." "You're just bored, that's all," Ethan replied casually, like they were talking about a dish they'd grown tired of. James didn't deny it. His silence was an answer. Ethan kept going, his voice now tinged with a nasty curiosity. "So, you slept with the new secretary? What's her name again? Chloe Bennett?" Silence. A pause so long I felt my heart stop. My fingers clenched the keys, metal digging into my palm. "No way, seriously. You actually did it?" Ethan laughed, half surprised, half entertained. "Almost," James said, his tone indifferent, like describing a failed business deal. Almost. Those three words pierced through me like a bullet. It wasn't full betrayal, but enough to shatter every illusion I was still holding on to. I stood there, outside my own home, feeling like a stranger. "You better know when to stop," Ethan said, his voice more serious now. "You used to be crazy about Alyssa, would have died for her. Don't wait till it's too late to regret. If she walks away, no one can bring her back." James let out a cold laugh, the sound sharp like a blade. 10 years together? You think she'll give up that easily?" That sentence stunned me. My whole body went cold, like the blood in my veins had frozen. James wasn't just bored. He saw my loyalty as a leash, as a guarantee that I'd always stay no matter what. He knew how precious those 10 years were to me, and still, he used them as a weapon to hurt me. The name Chloe Bennett wasn't unfamiliar to me. She was the new intern James had recently recruited into his company. I still remember the first time he mentioned her. His eyes lit up, openly admiring her. He told me that Chloe had actually failed her final interview round, but she didn't give up and kept sending emails, persuading the interview panel with a heartfelt speech about her passion. "That kind of persistence," James said, full of admiration, "is rare in young people these days." In the end, because he was impressed, He rejected a more qualified candidate to take her in. I remember frowning when I heard that, my voice clearly showing displeasure. Isn't that unfair? Interviews should be based on merit, not on who's better at persuading. That's not fair to the others. James rarely got angry, but that day his face darkened and his eyes flashed with an unusual fury. What kind of doctor are you to be so cold-hearted? No empathy at all. It's my fault. I've protected you too much. That accusation didn't make me question myself. On the contrary, I kept arguing, defending fairness and principles. The fight went on past midnight, turning into a silent war. James slept on the couch, and I lay alone, staring at the ceiling, wondering why he had reacted so strongly over an intern. In the end, he was the one to make peace, bringing me morning coffee with that familiar soft smile. We made up, but the name Chloe Bennett stayed tucked away in a corner of my memory. Now I know she wasn't just an intern. She had become James's personal assistant, and ever since then, he stopped sharing anything about work with me. The evenings he used to spend talking about projects, challenges, or even random office stories all disappeared. People always need someone to talk to. If they're not talking to you, then they're definitely talking to someone else. Turns out, changes always come with early signs. That night, I went to bed early. I felt the mattress dip behind me, his cold hand wrap around my waist, slipping under my nightgown. That touch, which once stirred me, now only made my skin crawl, as if my body was rejecting him. I grabbed his hand, stopping him, my voice flat. I'm not feeling well. James froze. I could feel the tension in his body, his breathing heavier, as if holding back desire. I knew he was frustrated, but he didn't force anything. He just gently pulled the blanket over me, then stood up and walked to the bathroom, taking his phone with him, a habit I hadn't noticed when it began. My phone buzzed. A friend request popped up on the screen. The profile picture was a familiar face. Chloe Bennett. I took a deep breath, my finger hovering before I tapped accept. Seconds later, a message came through, along with a screenshot. It was a chat between her and James, the timestamp showing it was sent just as he'd walked into the bathroom. Chloe had sent the name of a hotel and a room number. I'm not asking you to divorce. I just want to give my first time to the man I love most. If you don't come, I'll pick a random man. If it's not you, then to me, it could be anyone. Don't regret this later, James replied, short and sharp like a blade. Wait for me. As I finished reading, my chest tightened. James stepped out of the bathroom, his hair damp, a fake smile on his lips. Babe, something urgent came up at work. I need to step out and handle it. The lie rolled off his tongue smoothly, like he'd rehearsed it 100 times. In the past, he'd often left the house late at night, using work as an excuse. Because I trusted him, I never questioned it. Thinking back now, had all those nights been for Chloe? I'll go with you, I said, my voice calm, but eyes locked on his, scanning for any trace of panic. James paused for a beat, then quickly put on his usual gentle face, patting my head like soothing a child. You're not feeling well. Don't push yourself. I'll feel terrible if your health suffers. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. He didn't give me a chance to say more. He turned, grabbed his coat, and left. The door closed behind him with a sound like a verdict. I didn't think twice. I grabbed my car keys and quietly followed. The city streets were dark, neon lights sliding across the windshield in blurry streaks. James drove fast. I almost lost him at the third intersection. His car stopped in front of a luxury hotel, golden lights glinting off its facade. Chloe was already there, in a tight dress, red lips glowing under the lights. As soon as she saw James, she ran into his arms, and they kissed wildly, like lovers who'd been suppressed too long and finally unleashed. I sat in my car, less than 10 meters away, swallowing the bitterness rising in my throat. My hand trembled as I picked up my phone, capturing the moment. One photo, then a 10-second video, catching them wrapped around each other like no one else existed in the world. I watched them walk into the hotel, James's figure disappearing behind the glass doors. I stayed in the car, my breath heavy, trying to stay composed. The pain in my chest wasn't a sharp stab anymore. It was a slow, bleeding wound, spreading silently but relentlessly. That night, I didn't go home right away. I drove aimlessly through familiar streets, the streetlights reflecting off the windshield like shattered pieces of memory. Eventually, I stopped at a small park, where James once held my hand and promised me forever. I took out my phone and called my former PhD advisor, Professor David Lee. On the other side of the ocean, where he lived, it was morning. The call connected after 2 rings. Alyssa? It's been so long since I heard your voice. His tone warm, tinged with surprise. I got straight to the point. Professor, is there still an opening on your overseas project? Professor Lee paused for a second, then laughed softly, his voice full of joy. So, you've finally decided? If it's you, there's always a place. I remembered years ago, after finishing my PhD, he had urged me to follow him abroad to join a groundbreaking hematology research project. It was a rare opportunity, a door to the world I had always dreamed of. But because of James, because of the intensity of young love, I chose to stay. Over the years, Professor Lee never stopped encouraging me. Emails, calls, reminders of the dream I'd left behind. And each time, I turned him down. For James, for our home, for the promise of our marriage. But deep down, I always wanted to go. And now, after seeing James in Chloe's arms, after hearing what he said to Ethan, I knew I had nothing left to hold on to. The Alyssa Parker of 10 years ago was a girl who craved love, willing to abandon her dream for the man she adored. The Alyssa Parker of today is a woman who wants to finish that dream, to live for herself. Both times, I followed my heart. I don't regret what I chose back then, but now I'm ready to move forward. In the end, Professor Lee and I agreed. I'd leave for his country in a month. Hanging up, I felt as if I had just unshackled something invisible. When I got home, I walked into the kitchen, opened the wine cabinet, and pulled out a bottle of red James had bought during our trip to France last year. I didn't pour it into a glass. I just opened it and drank straight from the bottle, the bitter taste sliding down my throat. Just 1 more month, and I would leave this place. Leave James behind. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Miller, my best friend. So? Was the candlelit dinner romantic? I told you, James loves you so much. You just need to be a little softer, and you'll surely keep him. I stared at the message, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. Everyone said James loved me. I used to believe it too. Turns out, when a man wants to pretend he loves you, he can fool everyone, including the wife who sleeps beside him every night. I looked up, my eyes landing on the ring on my finger. The silver glimmered under the kitchen light, simple, but carrying a whole story. James had worked extra shifts at a diner for 3 months just to buy it. Back then, he and his friend had just started their company. All their money went into the business. To afford a decent ring, he worked days and waited tables at night, sleeping less than 3 hours a day. Once, he was so exhausted, he fell asleep at the wheel and got into an accident. Luckily, the car behind managed to brake in time. Otherwise, I don't want to imagine what could have happened. I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding, and saw James sitting there, clothes stained with blood, arms and legs covered in cuts. When he saw me, he quickly hid his bandaged hand behind his back, as if he didn't want me to worry. My eyes burned with tears as I asked why he had to push himself so hard. He clumsily wiped my tears, smiling faintly, his voice weak but warm. Silly girl, of course I just wanted to marry you a little sooner. A beautiful woman like you. What if someone else stole you away? Later, when his career took off, and money was no longer an issue, James once offered to buy a bigger, shinier diamond ring. But I refused. To me, this silver ring was worth more than any diamond, because it held his love. But now, looking at it, I could only laugh bitterly. I remembered his nervous but loving eyes when he proposed, the way he knelt, hands trembling as he held mine. The promises he made still echoed in my head, but the man who said them was no longer the same. My fingers touched the ring. It felt as cold as my heart. Slowly, I slipped it off and placed it on the dining table beside the empty wine bottle. The ring lay there, small and lonely, a reminder of everything I once believed in, and everything I had just lost. This ring, I no longer need it. In the middle of the night, my phone buzzed, its screen lighting up the darkness of the room. A message from James. "Honey, something came up at work. I probably won't be home tonight. Don't wait up, get some rest. I'm with Ethan." I stared at the message, my lips pressed into a tight, bitter line. Just like the lingering taste of wine, still clinging to my tongue. He had already looped Ethan Brooks into the lie, no doubt about it. The two of them, such good brothers, always covering for each other's dirty little secrets, as if I were just a pawn easy to deceive. I didn't reply. I just turned off the screen, letting the darkness swallow that slick, practiced lie whole. My head was spinning from too much wine, the bitterness stuck at the back of my throat like tar. I didn't even bother to stand. I stayed on the sofa, my body sinking heavily into the cushions. My eyelids drooped, and I drifted off in the silence of the room, the ticking clock the only sound left, counting down the final moments of this marriage. In my sleep, I saw the James from the very beginning, awkward but radiant. We were first-year students at some school talent show full of lights and laughter. He came up to me, face flushed red, eyes sparkling, voice trembling but full of boldness. "Hey, you're really pretty." The cheesiest pickup line ever, and his friends burst into laughter behind him. After that, James texted me every day. We weren't even in the same department, but somehow I kept bumping into him on the way to the cafeteria or outside the campus gates. At first, I felt nothing for James. He was just an ordinary guy with a shy smile and a kind of eagerness that sometimes felt like too much. But slowly, his sincerity seeped into my heart. Afternoons when he waited for me after class, bringing 2 cups of coffee, listening patiently as I rambled about research papers, never bored, never distracted. After we officially started dating, James became even more attentive. He was the perfect boyfriend. We stayed together from undergrad through grad school. Those years felt like a sweet dream, where love was everything. After I got my master's degree, James knelt down in front of me, his eyes shimmering, hands trembling, as he held out a simple silver ring. "Alyssa, will you marry me?" I didn't even hesitate. I nodded instantly, heart pounding like it might explode. He hugged me tightly, voice shaking with emotion, like the whole world had shrunk to just the two of us. But now, in the dream, that promise shattered. The young James faded into the background, replaced by the fake smile he wore tonight, by the way his arms wrapped around Chloe outside the hotel. The next morning, the alarm blared from my phone, dragging me out of a restless sleep. I opened my eyes, my head heavy, and the pillow beside me soaked with tears. James hadn't come home all night. I stared at the ceiling, took a deep breath, and told myself, this will be the last time I cry for him. I stood up and went into the bathroom. Hot water poured down, washing away the bitter trace of wine still clinging to my throat, but it couldn't rinse away the ache in my chest. I put on my doctor's uniform, tied my hair up, and looked at my reflection in the mirror. And Alyssa Parker, who was strong, not the weak wife of James Sullivan. Even though I had decided to resign, I still had to show up for work. Appointments, patient files, responsibilities, they don't wait for feelings. That's the world of adults. Even with a broken heart, you still have to keep moving. Before leaving the house, I called a lawyer friend to ask about the divorce process. No tears, no begging, no blame. I didn't need some infatuated man to swoop in and save me or get revenge on James. My life was never built around him. I had my own path, and divorce was the only ending that made sense for both of us. That morning, I submitted my resignation letter and threw myself into work. Medical reports, consultations, discussions with colleagues, all of it kept my mind busy, pushing away the image of James and Chloe for a while. But as I held a folder, preparing to meet a patient's family in the cardiology ward, I turned and saw a familiar figure. James. He stood there, holding Chloe's hand tightly. Her face was streaked with tears, mascara smeared like a watercolor painting blurred by rain. They hurried into the cardiology ward, the exact room I was heading to. It turned out Chloe's mother had been admitted. Inside the room, Chloe knelt by the bed, sobbing uncontrollably, shoulders shaking. James stood beside her, gently patting her back, his voice soft and tender, the same tone he once used to comfort me. I stood outside, gripping the folder tightly. Chloe's mother, her voice weak, said she had no regrets in life, only fear that her daughter would be lonely with no one to take care of her after she was gone. I raised an eyebrow. According to her chart, her condition was only a coronary blockage, not life-threatening. But Chloe quickly wiped her tears, lifted her head, and told her mother, "Don't worry, I have a boyfriend now." Her mother asked who it was. Chloe turned, eyes pleading toward James. He said nothing, only slipped his arm around her waist, his face calm as if nothing was wrong. "Auntie, I'm Chloe's boyfriend," he said, his deep voice steady, persuasive. "Please rest easy. I'll take care of her." Then he looked at Chloe, eyes full of affection, as if she were his entire world. But her mother wasn't convinced. Her frail hand reached out and gripped James's. "Promise me you'll look after her." James lowered his head, his expression tightening. Chloe tugged at his sleeve, eyes begging him. James pressed his lips together, then nodded again, more firmly this time, as if convincing himself. I stood there, face blank, quietly pulling out my phone and snapping a few photos. I'd already decided on divorce. Having more evidence would only make it cleaner. James looked up and saw me, his face drained of color, panic flickering in his eyes. "Alyssa!" His voice trembled, like a man caught red-handed. He shoved Chloe aside, making her stumble. She, who had been pouting moments ago, now went pale at the sound of my name, staring at me in fear. Both of them looked terrified I'd make a scene in the crowded hospital. But I only said calmly, my voice steady as if reading a report. "Family of patient in bed number 3, please come sign the paperwork." Then I turned and walked into the room, leaving them behind. James and Chloe followed quickly. I handed Chloe the documents. "Your mother just has a coronary blockage. The stent procedure will be done tomorrow. I already told you yesterday. She'll be discharged in about 3 days after surgery." Chloe's hands trembled as she took the pen, glancing nervously at James. He clenched his jaw, his voice low. "Since when do you work at this hospital?" "I transferred here a year ago," I replied coolly. His throat tightened, his eyes widening as if realizing something painful. His wife had changed jobs a year ago, and he hadn't even noticed. Chloe handed back the completed form. As my eyes moved down the page, my hand froze. The address she wrote was our first home together. The house James and I had bought jointly, the one he once said was, "Where all our best memories live." James realized it too and opened his mouth to explain, but Chloe spoke first. "I'm so sorry, Dr. Alyssa. It's my fault. My old landlord suddenly sold the place and kicked me out. James offered me your old house to stay in temporarily. Please don't blame him. It was my idea." Her voice was soft, her eyes pleading, like a lost puppy. I looked up and met her watery eyes. Youth really does make people naive. "How long have you been staying there?" I asked, my tone strangely calm. She hesitated, clearly not expecting me to stay composed. 2 months," she stammered. "Good," I said, lips curling into a faint smile. "Then you should know that house belongs to us, bought with our savings. Based on market rates, rent would be $3,000 a month. Please transfer the full amount to me within 2 days." I paused, looking her straight in the eye. Also, I'm planning to sell that house. Please move out as soon as possible. Chloe looked helplessly at James, as if asking for rescue, but his eyes stayed fixed on me. Of course, I continued, my voice icy. If Miss Bennet doesn't have the money, she can find someone else to pay for her. As long as it reaches me, I don't care where it comes from. James's jaw tightened, his tone low and angry. Alyssa, what's the point of all this? There isn't one, I replied, meeting his eyes. Which is why, when you're free, we should talk about the divorce. The word divorce slipped out, and I saw a flicker of joy flash in Chloe's eyes, gone as quickly as it came. James's face darkened, his lips pressed tight, like he'd just been slapped. Do you really have to take it this far? He said, voice hoarse. I was just helping her, pretending to be her boyfriend. Why make it such a big deal? I gave a thin, sharp smile. Oh, really? Then if I helped another man by pretending to be his girlfriend and kissing him, would that be fine too? You wouldn't dare, James snapped, his eyes blazing, as if I'd crossed some sacred line. Hypocrite. I looked at him, the smile on my lips cold as frost. I guess one night at the hotel wasn't enough for you. Don't worry, I'll move out today so you and she can enjoy that house together. James froze, his voice cracking. You knew? I didn't answer. I'll have the lawyer prepare the divorce papers and send them to you soon, I said instead. I turned to leave, but James grabbed my wrist, his grip so tight it left red marks on my skin. His eyes dropped to my bare ring finger. The wedding band was gone. Alyssa, are you serious? His voice trembled, as if realizing something he could never undo. I pulled my hand free, unwilling to argue in the hospital. Between us, there was nothing left but the legal formality of divorce. But behind me, his voice rose, angry and pitiful at once. Alyssa Parker, you'll regret this. This time, I won't beg you to stay. There are plenty of women dying to be Mrs. Sullivan. I paused for a second, then kept walking without looking back. His words drifted past me like air, weightless. When someone becomes that shameless, you finally understand. Cheaters will always find a way to feel righteous, as if they were the ones who got hurt. That evening, a few close colleagues threw me a farewell party. Laughter and jazz mingled in the thick air. Everyone expressed regret at my departure, but when they learned I had been offered an advanced research opportunity, they raised their glasses in genuine celebration. On my way back from the restroom, I paused for a moment. Through the frosted glass of the VIP room next door, I saw James. He sat in the middle of a group of friends, a glass of whiskey swirling slowly in his hand, his gaze distant. The muffled voices seeped through the door, and I caught snippets. They were talking about me. James, is Alyssa really going through with the divorce? One man asked, half curious, half mocking. If it were me, I'd let her, another chimed in, tipsy. If she wants a divorce, give it to her. During the court process, just go cold on her. She'll get scared eventually. Don't compare yourselves to James. Another laughed. He's known for being whipped. Top-tier husband material. I stood there, gripping the edge of my dress, nails digging into my palm. I knew their wives. One cheated while spending her husband's money on younger men. Another clung to the legal wife title to secure benefits for her kids. Who still sacrifices everything for a man who's not worth it these days? James stayed silent, took a slow sip of his whiskey, the light casting a cold, detached glow on his face. His friends watched him closely, waiting. Then suddenly, he spoke, his voice low, like stone. After all these years, maybe it's time to teach her a lesson. The room stirred instantly, laughter and crude remarks flooding the air. I felt the blood in my body freeze, my chest throb with pain. A lesson, 10 years of love, now reduced to something I needed to be taught? Alyssa? What are you doing here? Looking for James? Come in, he's inside. One of his friends called out loudly, recognizing me. Before I could react, he pushed me into the room. The door swung open, and all eyes turned to me. James looked up, his expression briefly loosening, as if a weight had lifted. His hand, clenched around the whiskey glass, slowly relaxed, but his eyes remained cold, avoiding mine. I noticed that every man in the room had one or two young women beside them, pouring drinks, laughing. Only James sat alone, no one next to him. Ethan Brooks stood quickly, awkwardly. Alyssa, don't get the wrong idea. These girls are with us, not James. Please have a seat. No one else would dare sit next to him but you. I glanced over and saw James quietly move his coat from the chair beside him, leaving a space open, like he was waiting for me. Ethan gestured, and the girls started to stand and leave, but I raised a hand to stop them, my voice calm. No need. I came with coworkers. I'm leaving soon. I paused and looked James straight in the eyes. Besides, James and I are getting divorced. Everyone, enjoy your evening before I could finish. James cut in, his voice sharp with tension. Alyssa, are you done playing around? Don't take this too far. I met his gaze, mine colder than ice. I'm not playing. Do you remember what I said the first time you got drunk at a bar? James froze, his eyes flickering. I went on, slow and sharp. You drank until you were blurry, nearly kissed the wrong woman. I pulled you away just in time, and right then, I said, if you ever betray me, I won't need you anymore. With that, I turned and walked away. Behind me, a sharp crash rang out, the sound of glass shattering. James had thrown his drink to the floor, his voice breaking with fury. Alyssa, you really want a divorce? Fine. Tomorrow. At the lawyer's office. I didn't turn back. I simply replied flatly, fine. That's exactly what I wanted. After the party, I returned to James's apartment. The dim light cast shadows on the once familiar items that now felt foreign. I packed my things, every shirt, every book, every piece of memory folded neatly into a suitcase. Sarah had helped me rent a short-term place near her, just a temporary stop before I left for good. As I wheeled the suitcase to the door, I heard the lock turn. James stumbled in, reeking of alcohol, leaning heavily on Chloe. Our eyes met. Her face showed a flicker of triumph, like she'd already won. Chloe helped James to the sofa, where he collapsed, eyes closed. As she began to step away, he suddenly pulled her into his arms, hugging her tightly, slurring, Babe, I feel awful. Hold me. Chloe struggled, but James clung tighter, his voice cracking, nearly pleading, Don't leave me! Babe, don't go! Chloe glanced at me, face flushed. Mr. Sullivan, let go, please. Someone else is here. I had no interest in watching their little scene. My suitcase heavy in my hand, I turned and walked out of the apartment without looking back. The door closed behind me with a final click, like the end of a sentence. The next day, I met James at the law office. The atmosphere was cold, only the sound of rustling paper and the lawyer's even voice breaking the silence. Assets were split. The process was smooth. Outside the office, James spoke first, his tone harsh. So now you regret it, huh? You think I'm going to beg like before? People's patience has limits, Alyssa. You need to understand, I won't always tolerate your childish ways. I looked down at the divorce papers in my hand, lips curling into a faint smile. I didn't reply, just slipped the documents quietly into my bag. James frowned and continued, I'll arrange for Chloe to move out soon. I'll have my assistant transfer her rent to you, I nodded, my tone cold. Fine. I've cleared out everything from your place. Whatever's left, you can toss it if you want. I turned to leave, but James spoke again, voice lower. I didn't ask Chloe to pick me up last night. I was drunk. She happened to call, and the staff brought her in. I didn't turn around. James, you don't need to explain. That's your business now. His face darkened, lips pressed tightly together, like he had more to say, but the words caught in his throat. I walked away, my heels clicking steadily against the floor, each step taking me further from him, and from the 10 years I once thought would last forever. The next day, I boarded a flight to Shanghai. Professor Lee had a 5-day academic conference he couldn't attend and asked me to go in his place. I agreed without hesitation. I needed fresh air, unfamiliar streets to wash away the scent of old memories. Those 5 days in Shanghai flew by like a whirlwind. Bright conference halls, sharp presentations, firm handshakes with leading experts in hematology. I took notes, debated, networked with major figures, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had found myself again. Every day was so full that I didn't think about him, not even once. See? Love isn't everything. Life still holds countless things worth chasing, and I'm chasing them now. Upon returning from Shanghai, I went straight back to the hospital. The sound of blood pressure monitors, the smell of antiseptics, the hurried footsteps of my colleagues, they all pulled me back into my familiar rhythm. After my shift, I stepped out through the hospital gate just as the sunset dyed the sky a deep red. And there he was, James, leaning against a sleek black Maybach, a cigarette between his fingers. A male colleague walking with me leaned in and whispered, "He's been here for days. I heard he even asked security about your schedule. He comes every day to wait." He glanced at me with concern. "Need me to do anything?" I shook my head and smiled faintly. "It's fine." "Thank you." As I said goodbye, James began to walk toward me. The sound of his leather shoes on the pavement heavy, like each step carried the weight of exhaustion. Up close, I saw it. His eyes were bloodshot, rimmed red, as if he hadn't slept for days. A rough stubble covered his chin, messy and unkempt, nothing like the overly polished, spotless James I used to know. He stopped in front of me, his voice hoarse with a bitter edge. "Dr. Alyssa, huh? That good? Already found yourself a new man? I just wonder how he'll react when he finds out you had a 10-year marriage behind you." I met his eyes, calm and steady. "Maybe 10 years seems long to you, but to me, it's nothing." James flinched, eyes flickering like he hadn't expected that. He gritted his teeth, voice rising with loss of control. "You think I went crazy looking for you these past few days? Hate to disappoint you, but I didn't even make a call. Go ask your friends. I didn't ask a single one where you went." I raised an eyebrow, my lips curling into a cold smile. "Then what are you doing here?" The question left him speechless. He stood there, cigarette still in hand, smoke curling in the air, eyes lost, like he himself didn't understand why he was here, standing at the gates of a hospital, waiting for a wife who was already leaving him. After a while, he spoke again, his voice quieter. "You changed the locks." I couldn't get in. He meant the house, where Chloe once stayed, the place that held our most beautiful memories. I nodded, my tone even. "That's right. It's my house, and I'm selling it. I don't want strangers entering, so I changed the locks." James's eyes widened, stunned like he'd been slapped. "You're really going to sell it? You can just let it go like that?" I didn't answer his question. I simply said, my voice cold, "The realtor will be showing the house in a few days. If there's anything you still want, come get it then." A flicker of pain crossed his face. In the past, whenever we argued, just that look from him would melt me. I'd run to him, hold him, soothe him like a child. But now I simply stood there, unmoved. He was no longer the man who would sacrifice everything for me, and I was no longer the girl who gave him all her trust. He had once cried for me, held my hand, and promised me the world. But now he could cry for another woman. The next day, I turned and began to walk away. But James, seemingly unwilling to let me leave just like that, quickly called out, his voice urgent. "One more thing, the divorce appointment. I have something that day. I need to reschedule." I stopped in my tracks and turned to look at him. James stood there under the deep red sunset, a hint of smugness playing on his lips, like he'd just scored a small victory by cracking the indifference on my face. I took a deep breath, my voice icy cold. "James, don't play that game." No matter what happens, you better show up in court. I don't have time to drag this out with you. I had already promised Professor David Lee that once the divorce was finalized within a month, I would go abroad to restart my research dream. I don't want this to end in a lawsuit, I added, eyes locked on his, offering no room for negotiation. The smile on his face froze, like he'd just been doused in cold water. You really want this divorce that badly? He asked, voice dropping, a trace of unease slipping through. Isn't this what you wanted? I replied. He wanted to be with Chloe openly, without hiding. I was just helping him get there. James didn't deny it. He just stared at me, eyes clouded. We'll see when the day comes, he muttered, his voice detached. Anyway, I might not be free. He smirked, his eyes flicking over my face, like he wanted to provoke me. I could feel the heat rising under my skin, but I simply pressed my lips together, turned, and walked away. Behind me, the Maybach's engine roared to life and faded into the distance. The next morning, I woke to a call from the real estate agent. The house had been sold, paid in full, in cash. I was genuinely happy. Finally, a piece of good news. I immediately asked the agent to proceed with the title transfer as soon as possible. In the days that followed, I was busy wrapping up my work at the hospital and finalizing paperwork for my departure. James called occasionally, but only to ask trivial things. Where's my white dress shirt? Where did you put the blue tie I like? At first, he tried to sound casual, but the more I gave him nothing, the more anxious his tone became. After a few calls, I stopped answering altogether. If it weren't for the unfinished divorce proceedings, I would have blocked his number long ago. Those calls, once a tether he clung to, now felt like nothing but a nuisance. One afternoon, as I stepped out of the hospital, Ethan Brooks appeared, standing in front of the exit. His suit wrinkled, eyes tired. Alyssa, can we talk for a minute? He asked, voice hesitant. I crossed my arms, looked him dead in the eye. Go ahead. Ethan cleared his throat, like he was choosing his words carefully. Chloe? James fired her. She's been in a bad state lately. Got drunk last night and got into a fight at a bar. He looked at me, waiting for a reaction. I raised an eyebrow, lips curving into a faint smile. If she's hurt, she should go to the hospital. Telling me won't help, I knew exactly what he was trying to do. Plead James's case, hoping I'd soften. But I never liked Ethan, especially not after hearing him laugh, while James publicly humiliated me. The issue was never just Chloe Bennett. Mistresses are pitiful, sure, but only to those foolish enough to feel sorry for them. The real root of betrayal is always the cheater. If it hadn't been Chloe, it would have been someone else. Once a man cheats, there's rarely a way back. And me? I have no interest in playing the role of the betrayed wife, waiting at home for a man who already chose to walk away. Time passed quickly, and the day before the court hearing arrived. I was packing my luggage at home, hesitating whether I should remind James about the appointment. But before I could decide, the doorbell rang, sharp, slicing through the silence. James barged in, his face twisted with rage, his eyes cold like a wounded animal. He stared at me, voice grinding through clenched teeth. You're the one who sent those photos of me cheating to my dad, aren't you? I froze, my mind blank. Don't pretend, James shouted, stepping closer, his breath reeking of cigarettes. If you didn't secretly tell him, then why did he have a heart attack and collapse at home? If Chloe hadn't found him in time, who knows what would have happened? I blinked, slowly piecing it together. My face hardened, turning ice cold. I had thought about asking his father to talk to him, but I knew he had a heart condition and dropped the idea, afraid of the risk. James, I said, my tone flat but razor sharp, if your brain's not working properly, go get it checked. I'm a doctor. Do you think I'd risk a patient's life for some sick joke? Before I could finish, James slammed his fist into the wall behind me. The loud thud made my heart skip. his face twisted in pain, eyes full of bitter disappointment. Alyssa, this time you've really disappointed me. I didn't think you were capable of something like this. He turned away, voice trembling but firm. You want a divorce? Fine. I'll show up tomorrow. On time, I watched him disappear behind the door, my heart cold. Whatever urge I had to explain dissolved. He wouldn't listen, wouldn't believe me. So what was the point of saying anything? At least his anger had pushed him to finally show up in court. That was enough for me. The next morning, when I walked out of the courthouse with all procedures finalized, I felt a kind of relief I had never known before. Like the weight that had crushed my chest for so long had finally lifted with the cold breeze outside the window. James opened his mouth to speak, but his phone rang, interrupting him. It was Chloe, her worried voice blaring through the speaker. James, your dad. He fainted again. He hung up immediately, face going pale, and rushed to his feet. Just before running to his car, he turned back to me, his gaze conflicted. Anger, regret, or something I no longer cared to understand. Alyssa, think about what you've done, he rasped. What happened between us? We'll talk later. I laughed, but tears streamed down without warning. Divorced already. What was left to talk about? I watched his car disappear and whispered softly, James, from now on, we'll never meet again. That afternoon, I packed my things, dragged my suitcase to the airport, and boarded a flight to Germany. The sunlight streaming through the airplane window was warm, but it wasn't enough to warm my heart. In James's eyes, I was always just a moody girl, but he never truly understood me. Once I make a decision, I never look back. After landing in Germany, the first thing I did was change my phone number. Aside from my parents and a few close friends like Sarah, I cut off nearly all contact with people back home. I threw myself into Professor Lee's research project, long days in the lab, sleepless nights under the microscope. A new life without James, without memories, just me and the dream I once left behind. 2 years later, today, our research team is preparing to return home with our latest breakthrough. Before the flight, I called Sarah Miller. As soon as she picked up, her voice was hesitant. Actually, there's something I've kept from you. About 6 months after you left, James came to see me. I raised an eyebrow, my tone casual. And? Sarah snorted, her voice tinged with frustration. That idiot broke into my house trying to find out where you were. I had to call the police to get him out. I chuckled, a soft laugh like the breeze. He was that desperate, huh? Now, hearing James's name brings no ripple to my heart. Him, Chloe, or the memories. We are all strangers now. Sarah huffed again, as if still mad for me, but I only smiled, my gaze turning to the endless blue sky outside the airport window. Through Sarah, I learned the truth. It wasn't me. It was Chloe who had sent those photos of James cheating to his father. When the truth came out, James kicked her out of the company without a single word of explanation. Sarah told me, her voice tinged with annoyance, that James had come to her. He said that for the past 2 years, he had never stopped thinking about me, never stopped loving me. He claimed the divorce had only been a threat, and that in his heart, I was always his wife. Sarah paused, as if waiting for my reaction. I simply smiled gently. Is that all? I asked, my voice calm. She sighed. James bought back the first house you two ever owned. He's been living there for the past 2 years. That house, the one once filled with our laughter, the place where I once believed love could last forever. But now, no matter how beautiful the memories, they're just shards. They hold no meaning for me anymore. Not long after, I was packing my suitcase again, boarding another flight, leaving it all behind. The plane trembled slightly as it lifted off, soft golden light spilling through the window, falling across the research folder in my hands. Professor David Lee sat beside me, his warm, steady voice going over the next phase of the project, the upcoming experiments, the breakthroughs on the horizon. In the row ahead, a few younger researchers in our team were grumbling, their faces tired. I feel like I've aged 10 years, one muttered, running a hand through his thinning hair. I'm losing handfuls of it, another chimed in, half joking. Professor Lee chuckled and rubbed his shiny bald head with a grin. Look at me. You've still got a long way to catch up. I laughed too, softly, my voice light. I tilted my head and looked out at the airplane window, at the vast, cloud-dotted blue sky. The white clouds drifted freely, untethered, just like my soul at this moment. These past 2 years, I've learned to let go. The long nights in the lab, the heated debates with colleagues, the times I stood before international conferences with my heart pounding from sheer passion, all of it slowly healed me. James, Chloe, the old house, the shattered promises, they're no longer chains. They are waves that have already passed. I rested my hand on the folder, my fingers brushing over the words that speak of the future, of the dreams I'm chasing now, the road ahead. I won't let the past, or anything else, hold me back. I've chosen freedom. I've chosen myself. I've chosen a wide open sky, where I can breathe without pain in my chest. I looked out, toward the shimmering horizon. Freedom isn't about running away. It's about standing firm, about choosing to live in a way that's true to your heart. And I, Alyssa Parker, have found it. A path no longer shadowed by the past, but filled with the light of what's yet to come.